during that time, I'd been making friends with someone on social media, and she was an astrologer, and I'd never had an astrology reading. I knew about my sun sign. I'd always been curious. Like, I loved reading my horoscopes and stuff like that, but I had never had a birth chart reading. And this chick had an offer for that month in February where she would do your birth chart reading as well as like the year ahead reading. And because of everything that was going on, I felt like I was searching for something. I was searching for answers. I was like, why is all of this happening to me? Welcome to Empower and Evolve, the vortex of growth that you have been looking for. I am your host, Kat Tunnyberg. I'm a mindset coach for female leaders, and I am committed to helping you cultivate the mindset shifts that generate you wild success. Each episode, we explore ways to tap into your true potential. We face the shadows that hold you back, and we embrace the journey toward your most abundant life. If you love what you learn here today, then I invite you to share this episode with someone that needs to hear it. Right, it's time to plunge in. Hello, my love. Welcome to this episode of Empower and Evolve. If you're watching me on YouTube, you can see it's a bit of a different background. I'm actually recording this podcast episode from outside, from our yard. It's been so beautiful, this weather lately. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to record the podcast outside because why not? I'm excited for today's episode. I've been wanting to record this or one form of it for a little while now. And it actually feels so fitting to do it now after a recent decision that I made. So today's podcast episode is all about my journey with astrology, which has been really fascinating. And the reason why I'm recording this podcast episode now is I recently signed up for a 1-year certification to learn master level astrology. And it's really interesting for me that I made that decision because I had actually recently told myself and promised myself that I wouldn't be signing up for any new certifications or anything because I already have such an incredible toolkit. And sometimes I get distracted with wanting to learn more and more because I'm obsessed with it. But then this certification came along. And I was sitting on this decision for quite a while. I was leaning into my emotional authority. I was riding the waves. And eventually I knew I had to do this. Not because I wanted to become an astrologer offering natal chart readings, but because there is so much more power to it. And I'm not going to rule out that I'm never going to offer natal chart readings. Maybe I will. But that is not the reason why I signed up. Astrology has completely changed my life in these last 12 months, actually. Less than 12 months. Probably it's been about 9 months or so. Actually, you know what? No, it's been about 12 months, I think. Maybe even a little bit longer if I go even a step further back. And today I wanted to share my story with astrology with you and how it has led me to this decision to sign up for the certification and what I've already learned in the couple of weeks that I've been inside the certification and just going through the first module. And I'll keep an eye on the time. And if need be, I might break this up into 2 parts, but I'll see how we go. In order for you to get the full impact of this episode, I need to take you back to February 2024. On February 1st, 2024, and I've shared this before on podcast episodes, so you may have listened to this before. On February 1st, 2024, I had announced that I was going to be one of the facilitators at that year's Earth Daughters Festival, which I was so excited about. was beyond thrilled that I was chosen as one of the facilitators and that I got to go there and share my magic with this beautiful community. I'm excited to be back again this year, but that year was my first time and it meant a lot to me. So I made the announcement on social media sharing that I was going to be facilitating. And a couple hours later, I got a message from the organizer and she told me like, hey, like block this person from your social media. There's a witch hunt out for you. And I was like, what? So turns out someone must have seen my post and sent an email to the festival organizers basically telling me to take me off the schedule because I'm a fraud, I'm a cult leader, I don't have any credentials, etc., etc. I can't remember all these things. So that sent me down a deep, dark spiral. I was already on the verge of not really knowing what I wanted to do. And a few months before that, in October 2023, I had an incident where I made a post and that got taken very wrong by a lot of the local community in my town and turned against me. And I was definitely like on thin edge, and I've been making my voice more palatable already because of that. And then that happened, and I was a mess because in January as well, I had been part of a collaboration for an online course that really didn't go well, where I felt very used by the other person and very much let down. So I was just on this thin ice with myself, with my career, with what I wanted to do. I was questioning my work. I was questioning whether I could be a coach. I was questioning my motives. I was questioning myself on all these different levels. And then that happened, and it was just it was the straw that broke the camel's back. And during that time, I'd been making friends with someone on social media, and she was an astrologer, and I'd never had an astrology reading. I knew about my sun sign. I'd always been curious. Like I loved reading my horoscopes and stuff like that, but I had never had a birth chart reading. And this chick had an offer for that month in February where she would do your birth chart reading as well as like the year ahead reading. And because of everything that was going on, I felt like I was searching for something. I was searching for answers. I was like, why is all of this happening to me? What have I done? What the fuck is going on? And how do I move through this? So I ended up booking that reading for the hopes of getting some clarity with what was going on with me. And I really loved that reading. I learned a lot about myself, about my strengths, my weaknesses. It was really interesting to kind of get the solar reading, like for the year ahead, and kind of see some like major dates for some transits that were coming up and how they would impact me. And looking back, like I've looked at those dates of those transits, and they were very impactful. Like I had taken so many notes during that reading, and I've gone back and looked at, as the year kind of progressed, what was going on. But that reading really gave me hope because it basically shared with me that, yeah, I was going through a major transition in my life, and, things were going to open up and clarity was going to come, and my career would shift drastically this year and there would be amazing opportunities, etc., etc. So that gave me hope, which at that point I really, really needed that hope because I was a mess. Like I couldn't sleep at night. I was like thinking like who would do this? Like, because this person claimed to be a reporter at the local newspaper saying that they were writing an expose about me. And then I was like wondering, is this actually like real? Is there a witch hunt out for me? Like, are people literally writing a report about me and trying to like pull me down? And then of course the lawyer in me kicked in, which I don't know if you know this, but I have a bachelor degree in law. And I was like, well, if someone's going to do that, I'm going to sue them for defamation because this is not true. Like I have credentials, I have all these things. I don't have a cult. Like what the fuck? So that kind of like really helped me that I had that background to realize that whatever these people were doing, they had no leg to actually stand upon. But still, it impacted me because I was already in this fragile place from this questioning of who I was and what I wanted to do. And, I was going through that whole phase of blaming it all on business coaching and so many things. Like I was totally in victimhood at that point. Like I was blaming on everything, on anything. It was a wild time, but that reading really gave me hope. It gave me hope that change was on the horizon and that things would get better. So, like, fast forward many more months, I was going through the first 5, 6, maybe even 7 months of, actually, I would say even the first 9 months, because even after what I'm about to share with you, there was some resistance there initially. I was the first 9 months of 2024, I was going through a massive soul search. Like I was literally trying to figure out who I was and what I wanted to do. I knew that I wanted to be coaching people. I knew that I wanted to be mentoring people. I knew that I loved what I did and the transformations that I got my clients, but I wasn't sure what angle I wanted to take. Like I was playing around with this whole business thing in 2023. And then that kind of went, I had some realizations around that and how that didn't feel in alignment. And then I went into like actually wanting to be a self-care coach for women in business and, focusing on kind of that nervous system regulation, which is still a huge part of my work now. And then for a while, I was like fully toying around with just being a women's empowerment coach and like dropping the business completely. For a while, I was considering getting into relationship coaching. Like there was so many like different aspects of what I thought I would wanted to do and who I wanted to be. And like it was like just be a hypnotherapist. I just went through all these different fucking iterations. It was a wild ride. Um, yeah. But eventually I came across this chick on social media. Her name is Casey Dene. And it turns out that she was going to play a huge part in my awakening and homecoming. So I came across Casey and somehow I ended up on her email list. And in the middle of the summer, she was doing this like 7-day sale thing with like a different offer being on sale once a week. And I ended up purchasing a 30-page report from her. And the report was called A Branded Birth Chart. And in that branded birth chart, she was going to take my natal chart and look at my natal chart and see like what is my overall like mission? What are my strengths? What is my career path? Who are my ideal clients? What are their dreams? What are their pains? And what are like my own strengths and who am I talking to and what kind of a guide am I? And just all these beautiful things inside that report. And I saw that. And because I was on such a soul searching mission, I was like, oh, maybe this is it. Maybe I'm going to get some answers through this report. So I ended up purchasing it. And it took almost, I think, a month to get it back, which is fair enough because, it's quite a bit of work to put it together. And I'm sure she sold probably quite a few of those during that sale. And I got that report back and I started reading it. And at first I didn't read it page to like start to finish, but I was just kind of browsing through the client's fears. And when she created a report for me, I had to fill in like an intake form. And in that intake form, I shared what I was doing, feminine embodiment work. I said that I was doing some business coaching, NLP, hypnosis, all these kind of things. I listed it all in there. Anyway, I got back the report and I started to browse just through the different client pain points and desires and everything. And I noticed that they were all related to business. And at first I didn't think too much of it. And I would just thought like, whoa, this is really cool. Like, okay, like these are like definitely themes that I help my clients with. There was a lot of like burnout, like time management, money, like financial management, creating business, fear of success, fear of visibility, like desires around community and building a life that they dreamt of, and all these things, like all these things that I was already doing. So it was kind of cool that to get that kind of confirmation, even though at that point I had been resisting doing business coaching. Like I had my mastermind, but I had been selling it in a way of like, this is the self-care for the female entrepreneur. And, in a way it worked because it was a lot of focused around the nervous system regulation and time management, etc., which was in alignment with my client pain points. But in that round of the mastermind, when I was selling it more of this, like, this is the self-care mastermind for the female business entrepreneur, I only had 3 women in that round. So it was the smallest round of the mastermind I'd ever had sold. And I was getting ready to relaunch the next round of the masterminds, like maybe a month after I received that report. So I really leaned into everything I was like reading in that in the report in regards to my client pain points and desires and hopes and fears. And I used that a lot in the marketing of the mastermind and kind of restructured the mastermind based on what that report told me. And I filled 6 spots. So I doubled the amount of women that were in there. And these women were all absolute dream clients. Like they were just so aligned. Because I had one woman in the previous round that my intuition had told me at the beginning that this wasn't the right fit for her. But I had said yes because I was going through some stuff and I wanted to do the best. And there was also the financial like instability and being like, just like, let me say yes. Massive list. Now I'm very big and like, if my intuition tells me that that's for someone, they don't belong in that container. And I've since learned many, many leadership lessons. But that was the first one, and I really had to go through that. And yeah, it was great to learn those lessons. Anyway, that launch for the mastermind felt so much more easeful. So I was like, oh, this is really interesting. Like this is really cool. I really love this information that I'm getting through here. And then it was time for me to launch my other signature program called Unleashed, which is kind of my feminine embodiment course. It's so much more than that, but that's just for the ease of it, which I had launched for the first time in the summer in July. And it was a pretty big success. I had 7 women join. And I was going to relaunch it in October, but I felt disconnected from it for some reason. And I remember like then finally picking up that report and reading it start to finish and having these like big aha moments. And at the same time, I was questioning myself, why are all of these things business related? Like, why is everything kind of relating back to business? So I ended up reaching back out to Casey and asking her, hey, I have a question about my branded birth chart. I noticed that all of my ideal client work is reflected back to business. And I wonder if that was just like by accident or like not by accident, by with intention, because I mentioned that I do some business coaching, or whether this is actually something that I'm really meant to be stepping into. And her response was literally the thing that has changed my life. She responded to me, you are extremely spiritual. Like you have one of the most spiritual charts out there. And you are the kind of guide whose energy is come and join me at the mountaintop, which once established is totally a vibe, but not really something that is easily marketable in today's business world. So the easiest way to layer what your clients needed was through business. And since then, I've learned a lot about my chart, which I'm going to probably share more about. But reading that message, something just landed. Something just hit. And I realized I am not your regular business coach. I'm definitely someone who is meant to work with women, predominantly in business. I'll get to this later, who are really wanting to connect with themselves, with their mission, with their vision, really make an impact and step into their legacy. But the way that I help them to get there is not like most business coaches, because my approach is meant to be so deeply rooted in the spiritual, in the mindset, in the energetics, in the subconscious, whilst also grounding it into real life structure and systems. So suddenly it hit me. There's a reason why I'm so obsessed with teaching on masculine and feminine energetics, because this is literally my strength. I am the person who brings together the feminine and the masculine, the spiritual and the structure. And I help others transform their lives through guiding them through that journey. Because generally, I have two types of clients. Number one, Mrs. Hyper Independent. She lives in her masculine, always doing, always hustling, always looking after everyone else, making money, working hard, doing all the things, and not allowing herself to receive support, to slow down, not take care of herself, etc. So that's typical client number one who comes to me. Client number two that I often get is the super spiritual woman. She's in flow. She trusts her intuition. She builds beautiful offers. She loves to be in her feminine. She really embodies it. But she massively resists the masculine structure. And she sees the masculine as something evil to be avoiding. And I've helped both of these type of women find balance. And reading that message, it just hit me. This is literally what I have been put on this earth for. This is it. I'm going to stop it here. This is going to be part one of the journey, of my journey with astrology and how it has changed my life. So if you want to hear part two, where it gets really juicy, then you want to come back in a couple weeks when I'm going to drop episode 2. Until then, if you have someone who is in a place where they feel really lost and they don't know who they are and what they're meant to do, maybe send them this podcast so that they can see that there's hope out there. Maybe if this resonates with you yourself and you've been on a bit of a journey, reach out to me. I would love to hear from you. If you're curious about astrology and how to use it to come back home to yourself, let me know. I'm going to be starting a wait list for my newest offer where I'm actually going to be teaching you what I have learned myself and how Casey has helped me to come home to myself and actually step into my gifts. This is why I signed up for the astrology certification, because I know there's a huge potential for utilizing this and then bringing it together with everything else I know, human design, feminine embodiment, all the things. So I have something that is brewing that is going to really lean on all these aspects and really help you step into your soul's mission, your legacy, combining all these different modalities. So if this is of interest to you, send me a message. I'll put you on the wait list. You can be one of the first, which means you'll be one of the ones who gets it the cheapest because I'll be wanting to build testimonials and get the experience for it. But yeah, I'm going to stop it here. I'll catch you in a couple of weeks for the next episode. And until then, stay rad, my love. Stay rad. And keep doing the work because people need you. And I love you. Thank you for joining me on the Empower and Evolve podcast. I hope that today's episode has sparked a new insight or perhaps reminded you of your own power to manifest change. If you found value in our time together, I invite you to subscribe and share this podcast with someone who might need a little reminder of their own magical power. It would mean the world to me if you could take just 2 minutes to review the podcast and help it reach more people. And remember, the journey of transformation is ongoing. And sometimes the most powerful step that we can take is to simply pause, breathe, and realign with our deepest intention. Until next time.